Welcome back, naughty listeners. It's your salacious goddess, Ivy. And today we are back for episode 5 of my naughty bookshelf. And in today's book that we will be reviewing, it is called Stalked by Seduction and Shadows by the lovely author Maggie Sunseri. And we have so much to get into, so much to talk about. I did just find out this book was a part 2 series. So we'll be discussing part 1 today as best as I possibly can. So with that being said, this is a dark fantasy book. And let's get dirty. So the author credits Maggie. I knew with my last episode I wanted to do a dark fantasy romance book. I knew that because I have been going just really hard with the dark romance, and something told me that this book had to be read. Maggie, you fucked me up. You fucked me up. Today was the day. I finally finished reading the book today at like 12 p.m. Okay? The day of the podcast is when I finished this book. It took me so much to finish it because it was so poetic. You write so well. Your writing was terrific. The way you described the characters, their love for each other, it was very just poetic. It was romantic. It was love. It was deep and dark, and it was... Man, I would do anything for Rune to bite me and turn me into a vampire right now, any day, anytime. He can have this body any goddamn time. But Maggie, your writing is magnificent, and I was so sad when it ended. And only recently did I find out that you had another book, a continuation of this book. And I just have to give you props and let you know that I have fallen in love, but not just you, because I'm falling in love with your writing and your mind. But this book was just so well written that throughout the rest of this podcast, I don't think I could ever do, I could not do what you did. And I'm going to do my best to be able to bring this book to light on why it's important to read, because Maggie, fucking phenomenal. Just everything about it. Every character, every part, the worlds, just Maggie. So for the content and trigger warnings of this book, there will be some somnophilia, there is a dom and subplay, there's some pet names, stalking, consensual BDSM and kink. And for all other content and trigger warnings, please go to maggiesunseri.com so that you can get a full list of warnings and triggers for both books, because you know, the more triggers the better for me. But I just want you guys to know what you're getting into, because this book it's not as dark, and I've read some pretty dark books. This is just, it's a lot of kink play, a lot. And so if you're not really interested in the kink scene and the kink lifestyle, the words, the verbiage, this may not be for you. But this was for me. It was for me. So for the book dedication, she wrote, "For soulmate love, however dark, powerful, and all-consuming." And I feel like that was just a little bit easy, because like, you don't understand the man in this book. And you will soon. So for my favorite part, I love to do the character breakdown, because I need you guys to know who I fell in love with in this book. The female character, her name is Scarlet, aka Little Flame. And then there is the main male character, which is Rune, and he is a turned vampire. We have some side characters who also play an important role. We have her very bitch of a sister, and I want to say bitch of a sister because her sister's a bitch, Isabella, so just remember bitch. And then we have Jackson, who is her shifter best friend. He's like wolf shifter. And then she ends up gaining some friends as she's traveling throughout worlds. And one of the ones that you'll hear a lot is Snow. And she becomes her very best friend throughout the rest of this book. And so, yeah, let's. So for the Daddy-O meter, how I usually do this is I give you guys the top, which is, it's still Zayd as of right now, but hear me out. Number 2 was Reed. Number 3, I had Xavier and Kane fighting for 3rd place, because I couldn't really put them. But as of today, Rune is in second place, and I had to now snatch Reed out the place. I don't know where Reed is. I'm not thinking about Reed right now. Rune is number two. Like, and the only reason why he's not number one is because the way this book ended. But if he redeems himself in the second book, I'm gonna let you guys know right now that Rune is gonna be number one, and that is just because he's a fucking vampire and a hot vampire at that. And like, I'm not really here to make judgment. I had said in the very beginning that at any point in time, depending on the book that I read, the daddies and their levels can change. But Rune is number two. He is. And we'll see in the next few episodes where that goes. So for the freestyle synopsis of this book, I'm going to give you my best version of what made me fall in love with this book. This book is absolutely what it says it is. It is a book about being stalked by Seduction and Shadows. We have our female character. Her name is Scarlet. She grew up in a small world where mortals are being told stories of vampires or immortals and witches who can be evil. That's just kind of the basis of things. And she grew up with her sister Isabella, who all she can really remember was there was a really small period of her time in her life where her sister was nice to her. As she got older and she developed more womanly body and features, her sister started to be really envious, mean, and bitchy towards her. And I mean, like, just calling her out of her name, being disrespectful, just constantly putting her down instead of being the sister that can just encourage a sister to be a smart, bright young woman. And so there's already a rift in the very beginning of the book because she just remembers being different when she was younger. And I think the reason why I genuinely love this book is because the female character is the underdog and everyone has shit on her, belittled her, never believed in her. And something in her just kept saying, keep going no matter what. She had a plan to run away with her best friend, Jackson. She was trying to save up money. This book does touch on sexual assault. And I just think that she's someone that I love as a female character because all of her life, she did not let the bad consume her. It did not turn her into a horrible person. She still kept going. And no matter how many times her sister has bullied her and put her down, her ultimate goal when she left was, I'm going to keep working so that I can split my savings with my sister. I'm going to leave her enough so that she can have some bills to pay. And then I'm going to have some so that, you know, as I'm out on the road with our best friend, we have food and we'll have shelter. And so just everything about Scarlet really gave bad bitch main character energy. But she did describe that growing up, she always felt like she was being watched and she just couldn't really shake the feeling. And it kind of keeps going into this story of as she gets older, you know, she's constantly aware that there's something about her that's different, but she does not know. And her whole family's just not really being honest with her. And her whole family really being her sister and her best friend. They know she's different, but nobody knows how she's different. And so, you know, the night before she was set to run away, her sister gets kidnapped by a bunch of born vampires. And just a little side note, you know, a little chaotic with how I tell stories. This book touches on trafficking because apparently the born, which are vampires who over centuries years old, do not have any regard for human life. But the turned vampires, considering the fact that they were once human, they actually they have no parts in that. So it's really like turned vampires versus born vampires, with immortals siding with the turned vampires and the witches siding with the turned vampires, if that makes any sense. So it's like they're all against the vampires who are out to just kill and murder and traffic humans for their own pleasure and gain, which is sick. It's very sick. So as we learn more about Scarlet and her story, on the other side, there's Rune, who's probably a few hundred, if not a few thousand years old, of a turned vampire himself. And he has came across Scarlet when she was younger and said that her voice was just really angelic. And he had this pull to just kind of watch out for her, protect her, because she just seemed like a mortal human that needed protecting. And I think like as years went on and he was watching her and he was seeing how mean people can be to her, as much as he wanted to intervene, he did not really want to cross that boundary of letting himself be known as someone who's soft, because he does have a reputation for being the world's most brutal turned vampire. And he does kind of hold his own clan. So there's like a clash of worlds that the pieces don't really fit, but he's there. And so as time goes on, he decides that, she's a young woman now, and he's just deciding to let her be. And as much as he would like to do that, it's almost like her scent that he's been so used to smelling throughout the years kind of came across him in her world. So a continuation of that is, as much as she was supposed to run away and leave her home and leave vampires, she was just supposed to be traveling. She ended up in his exact city, where he lives and he works, and he owns a club where the bottom is like a BDSM sex kink and the top is just like a bar. And since she comes from a past of hosting and bartending, she decides to get a job at his business, which fucks him up even more, because even though he stalked her growing up, he knows like something has to keep me away from her. Her scent smells too good. There's just a lot conflicting between them. And she has no idea that she has a stalker, right? Because I think that's how stalkers work. You're not supposed to know you have a stalker. And so he kind of lets it be known that he's officially a part of her life, because she's in his club and she has this habit of just drawing out people's attention. Men, women, all vie to be around her. Her scent, her smell, her smile just draws people to her. And him, in a state of jealousy, decides to kind of let it be known whose club it is and what she is and not allowed to do. And her just kind of being the person that she is like, hold the fuck up. I don't get tilted D from no one. So she does have a smart ass mouth, and I love characters like that because I got a smart ass mouth. So I love the dynamic where it absolutely gives, he's a very dominant alpha man, but like at the same time, bitch, you got me fucked up, because I'm also a dominant alpha woman. And I really only bow down to people who like really got that energy in them. You got to have that dog in you. I heard that. You got to have that dog in you. And so I think throughout the book, it's just a tease between who got it, who don't got it. And she still feels like someone's stalking her, and she doesn't realize that the person stalking her that she's been feeling for years is this vampire who's like telling her that she's not allowed to go downstairs in the basement without him. And he's saying things like, the day I claim you, don't let no one feed from you. And she's kind of like, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. But he's 100% serious, because this man he's a sadist is the word I'd like to say, where he likes to inflict pain for pleasure, of course. And so it's such a good balance of, naturally this is who he is, and naturally, she's really a submissive woman, but it just took someone like him to bring it out of her. And then so she doesn't tell anybody that the reason she's even in this town is because her sister got kidnapped by vampires, who, by the way, was originally looking for her, because apparently her scent is so strong and so pure that it attracts all types of people and entities and all these things, right? And he knows that because he's stalked her her whole life. So basically he knows that. So she kind of, went off by herself, left her best friend to go find her sister, who, by the way, is a bitch. And it's been known, and she knows that if roles were reversed, the sister would not be looking for her. Isabella does not care about her. And so, Scarlett, being the good person that she is and feeling guilty that the only reason why she got kidnapped and is probably being trafficked right now is because of her. It's just one of those adventures where she just ends up in the wrong town with a man who's been stalking her and is completely and utterly obsessed and devoted to her. But he's also trying to make her his. Like, he wants her to belong to him. And I guess there's a part in the book where they tell you never drink vampire blood, because then he'll be able to have access to you and see where you are. And so, of course, he kind of like gives her something to drink in such a casual way and was like, here, drink this, like, you look really thirsty. And it had a little bit of his blood in it, so that way he can really stalk her. I don't know, something about that was a little hot. Just something about it. I'm pretty fucked up, but it was a little hot. I'm gonna do something a little different today when it comes to the quotes and the spicy scenes. I don't want to break down the quotes and the spicy scenes the way I usually have, because This is a book that was so well written that the quotes do not do justice coming from my mouth. When I tell you the way Rune was able to talk to Scarlett and he just encouraged her, and there was times that he was just telling her how you're meant for more in life and how love really is. And then the way that her best friends hype her up when she's in this new town, it was so poetic. It was so real. It really came from a soulful place. Maggie really wrote this with pieces of her in it. It was a book that you really can't not read without understanding a little bit more of who the writer is. And a few of the quotes, and this is just towards one at the end of the book, I have to kind of jump ahead because this one kind of stood out. It was, obviously Scarlett and Rune were going through something, and how everyone always feels like we're undeserving at one point or time for love. And her best friend said, there is no deserve when it comes to love. There are no conditions or stipulations. You just love. And it's one of those things where you cannot manipulate someone into loving you. That is a part of the free will. You just love someone because you love someone. And it was such a deep read throughout this book that it mentally and emotionally and psychologically fucked me up, because it was a romance book and it wasn't as dark as much as it was kinky. And I guess the dark aspect would be the mention of trafficking and how deep it gets and how fucked up and corrupt it is when it comes to higher ups participating, and then him stalking her. But it was really just like a love of obsession, and that turned into like a beautiful relationship that two people really did love each other. And so I really wish I could sit here and tell you every quote of this book that turned out to be as great as it is, but I really can't do that because I really need you to read this book. I'm still shocked at how it went, but we still got more. Now, as the book goes on, it's one of those books where, the first 25, 30, 40% of the book is him, Rune and Scarlett trying to figure out how this can ever work, right? A human and a vampire. And then when she finally reveals why she's even in this town, and that is because she wants to find her sister, who at this point everybody knows is a bitch. Rue knows it, her friend Snow knows it, Jackson knows it, everybody knows that like what she's used to is whenever she flies really high, which is like she's at her most confident self, her sister's nagging voices in the back of her head telling her she's worthless, she's a piece of shit, that she's been sexually assaulted before and that's her fault because of who she is. Like she kind of clips her own wings very often and kind of brings herself back down instead of being the confident person that she is. And I think no matter what, throughout this book, Rune and Scarlett, but then Scarlett kind of realizing that she deserves so much more out of life. And she has her sister's diary because after her sister was kidnapped, she kind of took it and just needed a reason to hold on to it. That's just kind of her thing. And towards the very end of the book, because again, she decides that she's going to read her sister's book, and she finds out that that's not her actual blood-related sister. She was adopted, and that she's a succubus. And so, the history of vampires and succubuses, they're like mortal enemies, right? Because, Rune being the head of a major turned vampire clan versus going against a born clan has been their thing. And it's been known that people hire succubus to plant into another person's life to kind of get them to fall to their knees and take over. And so after Rune falls in love and they have this relationship, she, finds out herself that she is a succubus at the exact same time that Rune finds out. So he now assumes it's his job to take her out because, damn, you got into my heart, my soul, my life. Didn't even think he had a soul. And he breaks her down. And it was just so devastating because, the whole book is based off his obsession of bringing her up and realizing that they belong together and giving her everything that he could ever want to give a lover. And then he breaks her down when he finds out that she's a succubus, and he assumes that she's a plant for like his opposing vampire who obviously hates him And it's just so fucked up because I'm telling you, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. To see a writer write about a man give his all to someone, to give his all, to watch the characters' walls break down as they slowly fall in love to the moment they fall in love. And it's the clash, the sex, the intensity, the you're mine, I'm yours, let's hang out. Now everyone knows. Everyone's now shocked that this is the person that there's such a love between them that it kind of just like ripped apart at that moment. Now we're gonna give that a little side break, but the spicy scenes, the fucking spice in this book. First of all, because this is where I thrive, okay? First of all, this book was slow burn. And if anybody knows me, if you're gonna make me wait for sex, it better be the goddamn best sex on that motherfucking page. I better know what it's like to fuck Rune just by reading. Okay, the spice just gotta be there, okay? I am a smut kink hoe when it comes to these scenes in the book. I'm here for it. I'm okay with getting a t-shirt about it. I see that this is what I do for a living. I love this. I love this shit. And let me tell you, she fucking delivered. Now, I'm gonna give you a little bit of side note about Rune, okay? Because you need to realize why Rune is daddy number 2. Rune is obviously a 6-foot-something vampire, obviously pale because he's a fucking vampire. They always describe vampires as godlike. And of course I'm wearing an Edward color shirt because I need you to realize that he's obviously this pale fuck, right? But he's a sexy pale fuck, chiseled, god body, always talk about the length of their dick. This is just what we do in books, okay? So obviously he's well endowed is what I like to say. And he has I guess apparently every vampire kind of has powers, right? Because we've learned from watching vampires that on TV that they have powers. His is he has ink across his body that turns into shadows. So the ink from his body can leave and form shadows and plays around in air. And if they ever want to grab you, it can do that. Well, imagine those shadows fucking you. That happens in the book, and it's phenomenal. Before Rune ever gets naked and decides he wants to fuck her, his shadows do. But that's an extension of him, and it was just beautiful. It was beautiful. It was beautiful beyond compare. It was just great. And that's just one. There's a few scenes because she likes to make him jealous. Anybody likes to be the brat and kind of tease and edge somebody on to get just that side. And she likes to flirt with other people to get him a little bit jealous because then he ends up doing more. But in one of the scenes, when she's finally desperate for need and release, which he has a habit of teasing her, he absolutely spanks her, fingers her, fucks her. The sex from this man is so great. But they make you wait so long for the scenes that when you finally have it, you are in awe at how it's written. And in one of the scenes, when she's finally deciding she wants to be his, vampires apparently like to bite you and fuck you at the same time. It's just a claim that is their claim to you. And so during that scene, he's giving her 6+, maybe I won't be dramatic. It was probably 3+ orgasms all at once because he's very dominant. And after he gave her the first one, he's like, we're not done. After he gave her the second one, he's like, still not finished. And each time he's doing that, it's a different position in a different way. My shadows might fuck you while I do this, or I might do this. And then it's just, there's so many ways to go about it with this man, and I love him. And Rude he got me in a chokehold. I don't think there is, towards the very beginning, or in the very beginning, there's not a lot of sex, obviously, because this is him stalking her and being one with her, but towards at least 60% of the book on, it is just pure sex and adrenaline and the rush of falling in love with a man who can do the things that he's capable of doing. Again, he's very dominant by nature, so he does have a thing for, tying you up, spanking you. He's very kinky. He said to her once, because she was flirting with another man, and he says, do you know how I would claim you if you were mine? If you was actually mine and you did that shit, he says, I would make you suck me off. I would come in your face, put a leash on you and walk you around here so everybody knows that you belong to me. You sick fuck. I'm gonna go talk to somebody right now. Just kidding, just kidding. But at the end of the day, it was really hot how he said it. Cause like, dude, what? You would do that if I was, it's crazy. So to summarize the rest of this book, it's basically Rune falling in love and, you know, establishing a relationship with Scarlet. But it's only fucked up because if you're attached to Rune, you're attached to the people who are now after Rune. You know, it's clan versus clan. So obviously it's ops, there's wars, there's two people who just don't get along. And so he can't really be seen with her in public, right? His clan's allowed to know that she belongs to him, but his clan's also weary because she's a human. And why did you fall head over heels with this human so fast? So they're skeptical about her. They think there's something up with her. And so, you know, one of his right hand men, which is also a lady, decides to test her blood. And that's when she finds out that Scarlet is a succubus. And in the, you know, the diary of her sisters, she reads that, yep, she was adopted and that was never her family, and that the family knew that she was a succubus, but the sister just really wanted to be disrespectful and kind of harm her and let harm come to her because she was so very jealous. But they all start treating her differently except her best friend Snow because she's a succubus. So they think that she's like a plant in his life. And it's just fucked up because this whole book was just based off of their love. And now based off miscommunication, speculation, without trying to hear her out, ask her questions, he automatically assumes that she's like this fucking evil conniving bitch in his life. And he's hurt over it. And so, you know, it's just... It's a heartbreaking ending because, you know, towards the end, he finds out, he threatens her that he's going to end up taking care of her because he thinks she's a plant, doesn't give her time to explain. So she sulks, like literally Bella did when Edward left her. Those days in the room when she was depressed, the time she lied on the forest floor, that was literally what Scarlet is doing because you hyped me up and you gave me all this love just to snatch it away because of something I just found out. So it was just such a heartbreaking ending because she went to go look for him because she was like, I refuse for it to end like this. And then she gets kidnapped by the ops. She does. That's how it fucking ends. That's what they did to me. They did. Like, mind you, Rune's just now realizing, like, okay, it turns out with succubus, you actually cannot manipulate love. You can only manipulate desire. So if you genuinely loved someone, that's not something she can manipulate. A succubus's job is to get you to feel lustful, sex. They feed from that energy, right? But love is not one of those energies. So what he was actually feeling was genuine. And his dumbass decided to hurt her, and then she got kidnapped. Like, what the fuck? And not only kidnapped, got kidnapped by his actual fucking enemy who's been looking for her just based off her smell and her scent. Rune had already claimed her, decided that she belonged to him, and then like she gets kidnapped because you find something out that wasn't necessarily 100% true. It's fucked up. I'm fucked up. I'm emotionally scarred from this book, and I gotta give it a break before I read the next one. But I'm fucked up about this book. Like, Rune, are you fucking serious? I was rooting for you. In the very beginning, that still my man. I just want to let this be known. Like, this does not take away the simple fact that he's absolutely still a daddy in my book. He's still number 2. But yeah, just, you gotta read this book. The tropes are just everywhere at this point. And I think I need a break from books. I'm not ever actually going to take a break. My next book is, we're going to get there. So the conclusion of this is, goddamn, this book was good. And even though she was kidnapped to a horrible, horrible vampire who's known to traffic and exploit and drug women, I'm just hoping in the next book, Rune does what needs to be done. Like, revenge needs to happen, okay? I need you, and then the groveling, because you got me fucked up, okay? I need you to really make up. So the way you was obsessed with her in this book, I better see that times 10 in the next book, because, sir, I have never fell in love and been heartbroken within 2 days. But with that being said, you know, every time I read these books, I fall in love. It almost warps my sense of reality. I'm just delusional like that. But like, a great read. Again, Maggie, I think that what you're capable of putting onto words, into a book with words, is so inspiring, because as someone who's obsessed with reading books and collecting books, I have now had the urge to want to write and just to want to hone in on my writing skills to get better, because it's so fun to see words on a page. It's so fun to see them edited in a way where it makes me dream. I am there. I am picturing all these things. And if you just word something correctly, you're telling a story that I get to put together with my own imagery in my head. And I have a great, you know, imagination. And so it's something that I'm always in love with when the authors make me love them. And Maggie, I love you. I love you. I hope people tell you this, that to me, you're fucking amazing. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm sensing we're best friends. I'm sensing you should call me. Like, we should talk about books together. Invite me. You know, I should have your first draft of your next book. It's giving, we're going to be friends. And I'm just forever grateful that one thing I get to do is read a book and review it and talk about it, fangirl over it, to this gigantic invisible audience that I feel like I have. And I hope that I inspired you to read a book with an ending that better get made up in book two. But genuinely speaking, she did a fucking phenomenal job. And I can rave about this book when it comes to vampires. As someone who has watched Interview with a Vampire, the series, the movie, the books, I am in awe with vampires. And you was able to write something that made me crave for not just more, but for bits and pieces of Rune's life. No matter which way you want to take these books, you are a dope, dark fantasy author. And I just want to let you know that you have my heart, my love, my trust, and I'm ready for the next book. So with that being said,